What I think we'll see within 3 years is if you know the hard skills, right? How to shut off the breaker panel and how to use a drill, how to use a screwdriver, how to use a saw. I think in the next 3 years, we will see AIs capable of guiding you to do anything that's within your hard skills and able to take off pretty much 100% of the problem-solving load.
Hey everyone, I'm Debbie Madden, the host of the Scaling Tech podcast. Thanks as always for being with us. Today, I'm super excited to talk to Mark Kasdorf. Hey Mark, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing well. How are you, Debbie?
Good, good. So we're talking about Mark is a serial entrepreneur, and I'm going to tell you guys about Mark in a second. But before I do, we're talking about the intersection of generative AI and real business value. And Mark's going to walk us through how he's applying Gen AI in and throughout his business. And so, briefly, Mark is, like I said, a serial entrepreneur out of Boston. When he was straight out of school back in 2010, he founded Intrepid, a company that I knew for many years and talked to him many times when he was building and scaling that company. It was one of the first mobile agencies in Boston, bootstrapped to 25 million, exited to Accenture in 2017. So a wild and exciting ride. And then, founded Forge. And that's going to kind of be the basis of some things we're going to dive into today. Forge, I love Forge because Forge is seeking to build and power the next generation of heat pump labor and he's doing it with an intersection of modern technologies, and that's why it's really exciting. So Ford recruits Gen Z into the trades, which is like I think so important for the next generation of employers, employees. You train them up, you tech enable them, you employ them, and then you enable that labor to fight climate change by replacing fossil fuels with fuel burning heat sources and things like that with heat pumps. So super exciting problem space. Certainly very different from tech services, which is my background. And Forge has raised venture capital and is really tackling some important problems and scaling very well. So with all the let's kind of jump in like with all the competing forces, scaling a company, keeping great culture, solving a real need in the marketplace. Like on top of all that, what inspired you to apply Gen AI throughout the business? And like where like it's still early, we're still all learning, but like what inspired you to get started with Gen AI and like where are you seeing the most promising value so far? So let's start there and answer it as deeply or as narrowly as you'd like.
Sure. I think I first got inspired to try to figure out how to apply Gen AI to the business in 2021 when I got access to the GPT 2.5 demo. It was pre-chat GPT. Uh, it was very complicated to use and it was incredible. Like it blew my mind. And it has been that was, I think, before the term Gen AI was even coined. It has been in the back of my mind as something that I wanna try to figure out how to apply since practically the day we started Forge. I'll elaborate more on that in the ways I think some of the questions, will kinda guide us in that direction, but it's been from the very beginning.
I think, you were probably early on that curve, and I'm not surprised to hear that. But I think many folks listening today, if they're start whether or not they're an entrepreneur, or whether they're looking to apply Gen AI in their business, I think many of the folks that listen to the Sky Tech podcast are like with you at this moment. So, um, and so with that, like, what talk us through a couple of examples of how Gen AI has directly impacted your business processes because you're using Gen AI in some ways that I've heard of before in some innovative ways. So talk us through a couple of examples.
Sure, I'll give 2 example, one that's, home built and one that's external, tool that we're using. The home built one is, when pros and this is still an experimentation. We haven't, I wouldn't call this production level quite yet, but we're getting there. When our pros leave a job site, they get a phone call from what is effectively a GPT-4 powered agent. And that agent asks them the same questions that a project manager or manager might ask, like, "Hey, how'd the job go? How is the homeowner? Rate these certain things on these scales in a consistent way after every single job. How did Sarah do? She was supposed to commission her first system today." The system that we built is aware of our work, is aware of what was done, like has all these things as inputs, has had many of these conversations to train on. And we have kind of a single longish prompt that analyzes some of that data and then has a fairly active conversation with a pro, and then produces a report at the end of the day of all the different jobs that we did.
That's awesome. And you're saying before we get into the one that you purchased, tell me why it's still an experiment because it sounds like it's already definitely providing you value. So yeah, what are you hoping to learn in the coming months?
I think the biggest thing we need to do to get to full production is more deeply integrated into our systems. So it produces a report in an email. It doesn't quite fully interact with our work management system to fill in different fields in the CRM. It We are finding that it can drift a bit, and I think it's maybe some of the pros, I don't wanna say gaming it, but knowing how to get through the conversation as quickly as possible, knowing where it'll kinda shut down answers. We're learning a bunch. I think we're still very early innings on computers calling humans
Right, right.
and trying to get some information. So it's been a really cool test, and I think there's a lot of promise, but it's not quite production ready
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, I really I appreciate you sharing that because I think it's a really fascinating use case, and even though it's not fully productionalized yet, there's still a lot of learnings there and a lot of efficiency. So I love that story. And then do you want to go into that you said there was going to be a story about something that you built? That would be interesting comparison as well. Do you want to share
Yeah.
with us?
And I'll give a plug for this tool called Bluon. It's very specific to HVAC. I doubt anyone here has heard of it. It's a company that maybe 7 or 8 years ago started what was effectively phone tech support for HVAC techs, and they hired a couple of master HVAC techs, and anyone in the country could call them up and ask complex, hyper technical questions that you might have on a job site for I don't know what they charge, maybe $1 a minute or something like that. We actually talked to the founding team for compliance purposes. They saved all these phone calls, and then GenAI came along, and they were sitting on 150,000 hours of expert humans conversing with other, semi-expert humans solving problems. And they turned that all into a training set and into a chat bot, and it's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Um, we were planning on building something separate, something essentially identical, and basically shelved our effort because this was already built and it was really, really good. And actually, this is maybe a tangent that we can chase or not, but I think that human experts talking to non-human experts is probably one of the next big waves of training data. I heard from a friend that OpenAI had quietly purchased a IT tech support company, just because they wanted to start getting access to thousands of hours of footage of, Bill in Idaho walking grandma through how to set up for Wi-Fi,
Right,
right,
right.
and using that as training data. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting companies pop up um, that do this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fascinating topic. I wish we could dive into it, but I wanna kinda stay more at the general level, but, next time we have you on, we'll dig into that. This leads us into, like, build versus buy question quite nicely, right? And so I think, I know within Forge, you guys are a mix of, the experiments that you're building and running yourself, whereas, say, "Listen, we were about to build what Bluon had, and we went with them instead." And so how do you choose? Is it a case by case basis? I'm assuming it is. Like, what kind of data points you need to kind of really consider, relying on external solutions versus building it yourself? Because I think so many people are I talk to so many technology leaders, whether it be directly about what Stride has to offer or like all these other tools out there, like, oh, we're trying to build it ourselves. We might buy a tool. And so anything you can share about your thinking when it comes to build versus buy, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, so my thinking has shifted a lot on this over the years, and there's a couple of
Okay.
different factors. I say years, like over the last 18 months, right? Years is a lifetime right now in Gen AI. I think I've shifted pretty dramatically from mostly build to mostly buy. And I think there's two major factors. The first one, and I'm kind of reminded of the early days of mobile. In the early, and when I say early days, like when I started Intrepid, iOS, there was no Swift. Um, I think it was Objective C. There was no garbage collector, right? We had to do memory management, from scratch in code. And Gen AI feels like that. And when I say like that, development right now, and it changes every day. But a year and a half ago, certainly, and I think still today, development's expensive, right? We spent in 2022, we spent probably 500 dev hours on a particular problem that 3 months later, OpenAI eliminated with a new API.
Mhm.
And that 500 hours was literally useless, right?
Okay.
We created no value for the company and no value for the world.
Yeah.
And I think that as a couple of those sorts of things piled up, I realized that because it's evolving so
Yeah.
quickly,
Yeah.
it's a little dangerous to invest in kind of harder problems. I shouldn't say harder problems. Anything that you think is likely to be turned into an API, I would be leery to invest a lot of custom
Right.
development time in.
Yeah.
The other related thing is like the sheer amount of capital that is being poured into AI, both startups and I don't even, I barely consider OpenAI and cloud as startups anymore. You've got kind of the big companies that are raising, $1 billion plus rounds. And then you've got hundreds of companies raising 10 to $100 million rounds. And they're all innovating so fast, building such cool specific tools that I think it's dangerous unless you're a Fortune 500 company that needs to control its data. Like that's a very specific use case. If you don't have a data ownership issue, I think it's very hard to outpace the speed of development right now across the market.
I think that's an important lens. And then, I think sometimes it's easier to, break up with your decision if it's bought,
Yeah,
is built, you know,
yeah,
as well. And so, yeah, appreciate the fact that your thinking has evolved. And I really think this question is so important in this thought process because I'm willing to bet that most technology leaders' thought process has evolved along with yours and mine. And so I really thank you for sharing the way you think about that. And so let's dive into like a little bit specific related to your company and the trades. And so like we talked about the expert to non-expert conversation. I love that example, but give us another story or two about how you see Gen AI transforming forming traditionally hand-on industries like the trades. And what excites you about the future here, right? Because there's still like, trade is a way where like the humans, bring a lot to the table, and a lot of
yeah.
robots are trying, but humans still have still have the edge here. So yeah, so tell us how you see Gen AI transforming the trades.
Yeah, no, this is an awesome topic and an awesome question. I have in one of my decks that I've built, I have this model that I've built, this framework, which I took the levels of autonomous driving and mapped it onto what I believe is coming, not just for the trades, but for, you know, surgery and nursing and like so many hands-on human expertise um, things, right? So, just to like verbalize that mapping, level 0 for autonomous driving is like, hey, human has to do everything. Level 1, I believe, is 2 degrees of autonomy. So, speed control is not enough, but adaptive speed control is. That's considered level 1. Level 2 is basically where Tesla's at. And kind of thinking through that, I think just to add layer on to AI, I think not enough people are talking about the intersection of AI and XR, extended reality. And extended reality really just starts with Meta Ray-Ban glasses, right? If you haven't seen the Meta Ray-Bans, they're phenomenal. It's a pair of glasses, forward-facing camera, earbuds built into the stem, access to the internet. Like that's basically all you need. The glasses are not AI glasses. They have access to the internet, and the internet can provide AI functionality, right? So if we kind of think about this intersection between AI and XR, and we use the metaphor of the autonomous driving, level 1 is, kind of the level that doesn't feel like AI is you don't need the glasses even. It's like, hey, I'm in a home. I don't know how to fix the spoiler. Let's start with level 0. I'm in a home. I don't know how to fix the spoiler. I guess I need to leave. Like I'm just stuck. Level 1 is, I can call a friend with my phone, or I can go on YouTube. right?
YouTube.
I've got these kind of like 2 degrees of freedom and I can do some things. Level
Right.
two, which all the tech exists for today, and we're doing some of this, is I put on a pair of glasses and I phone a friend. I say, "Hey, I got my hands free. Like, Bill, you're an expert. Look through my eyes and walk me through how to do something."
That's cool.
Um, and the really cool thing about this level two is both wildly powerful for the trades, and more importantly, it creates the training set to create level three, which is I put on the glasses, I look at a problem, I've got this visual feed going into something, I ask a question, and Gen AI answers my question. So it's kind of like what Bluon did, except expanding from a text chat to audio visual. And I think, whether it's Forge or someone else, whether it's surgery or carpentry or HVAC, we're going to see these sorts of companies pop up, I think, middle of next year.
Wow. My brain goes to the double-edged sword nature of this solution where this is I agree, this is coming. And then, how do the entrepreneurs of the world like yourself, manage risk? And it's not data risk, it's human safety risk because you have human beings trusting, right? They're being told through, by someone looking at the thing. But how do we trust if the instructions are, you know, 99% safe or 100% safe, right? And so like and I'm sure people are thinking about this, but that's such a fascinating layer, right? You're putting a
Yeah.
tradesperson, a surgeon, right? And and then you're relying on your own level of expertise because what you're saying is you're gonna be able to get someone that's ultimately less senior able to do more senior things, but there still has to be that human judgment call in the loop, right?
Oh, totally. To extend the driving analogy, we've got these level two, Tesla and Audi, I think maybe even has a level three vehicle in Europe now. That doesn't mean we let 12-year-olds drive, right? You still need a driver's license. You still human need to be an expert, right? So I think as we hit level 2 to 3 in the trades over the next couple of years, you still need licensing. You still need to be an expert. You still need the equivalent of being a licensed human driver. And like we're all excited to get to, if I want to, to extend my thing level 4 and level 5, level 4 is in cars, you remove the steering wheel. And in um humans, so you remove the steering wheel, but you don't remove the driver's seat, right? I shouldn't say that. Well, you probably keep the steering wheel, but the car can like drive, you can go to sleep. But there's a steering wheel, like just in case the car says, "Hey, I need you." Level 4 for the trades is, "Hey, we're gonna roll this out, like, you can now do your own electrical work in your house. This thing is so powerful, it'll guide you, it'll stop you, it'll teach you." Level 5, where you remove the steering wheel is like, that's a robot. Like, that's a robot coming into your house and completely removing the human from the loop. I
Wow.
think there's a gigantic leap from level 3 to level 4,
Do
right?
you do
From
you
the
think that you and I will see that level 4 in our lifetimes?
oh my gosh, level 4 being, an empathetic AI voice can guide anyone with proper mechanical skills through doing, basic
Like
trades
me.
work.
Yeah, like myself. Like, I could change a light bulb and learn how to shut off the electricity without electrocuting myself.
So
Yeah.
the one thing the level 4 won't be able to do is teach fine motor schools skills. So what I think we'll see within 3 years is if you know the hard skills, right? How to shut off the breaker panel and how to use a drill, how to use a screwdriver, how to use a saw. I think in the next 3 years, we will see AIs capable of guiding you to do anything that's within your hard skills and able to take off pretty much 100% of the problem solving load.
Okay. Yeah.
The AI
3.
is never going to teach you the fine motor skills, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
something
Right.
that takes muscle memory.
Right, right. Got it. Yeah, it's an important distinction. So, do you like my original question, about the other side of this skepticism was going to be like, how do you address skepticism from employees in terms of integrating AI and generative AI? But my real question is, have you faced skepticism? Like, is your workforce like a scatter plot? Like some are excited, some are neutral, and some are skeptic, or like kind of and if there are skeptics, how do you address it? Like, yeah, but where is your workforce at in terms of their support of how you're approaching, the trade.
Pretty supportive. I think so. There are two wells of skepticism, two like areas. The first one is, am I helping to train something that's going to replace me?
Yep.
And that is where I'm really comfortably, unequivocally telling my team, like, nope, I'm going to make you more powerful, right? To make maybe another um, analogy uh, to cars, the pro is not a horse. The pro is a horse rider. And a car is a better horse, right? AI is going to make that rider, who now needs to be a driver, more powerful in every way. And the analogy is not perfect because the skills that made someone a great HVAC tech pre AI make them a way better HVAC tech post AI. I've convinced everybody of this. There's what we do is complicated enough. I mentioned earlier those hard skills. There's a lot of them, right? So I my team's not worried. The other area of skepticism that I think is harder to overcome is, and this is true in the trades. I'm sure it's true in most hands-on careers. No one wants to do anything that's going to slow them down. And
Yep.
new process, new systems starts by slowing you down.
Mhm.
And when you use alpha and beta systems and processes, it might be months of training before you get ROI benefit.
Mhm.
And I think with a trades labor force, if you can't show people ROI benefit in a job, the tool's not ready,
Right.
right? It's Bluon. I hand my crew this app and like, hey, you don't have to call Dave, who may or may not pick up anymore. You can text this app and it'll answer this giant class of questions that you used to have to call Dave. They use it 2 times, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, this is awesome. This is valuable." No skepticism. Um, I hand them a pair of glasses that, like, kinda blocks their peripheral vision, and it doesn't connect to the internet properly, and it doesn't answer the first question because it couldn't hear them, and they're like, "This is stupid. Why are you wasting
Mhm.
my time?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, and that's a good point. There's so many different solutions being thrown at all humans, not only in the trades, but and I think there is that like that I think the MVP for these new products, there might actually be like a higher bar than an MVP in software, right? Because they're people are it takes time, no one wants to slow them down because of all the reasons you said. So it'll be interesting to see how like the MVP and the lean startup world evolve in parallel with the way users are wanting to experiment with various Gen AI products, hardware, software. So, and like in some cases, we've seen like Google, Amazon, Microsoft spend gobs of money, right, innovating on products that then kind of don't make a splash, right? And so you need innovation of all sizes. So appreciate that. So the last question I want to kind of close with, because we're just right about time, is you and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and you kind of said something I thought was really interesting. That in your view, there's like almost too much emphasis placed on like starting new AI companies, versus like how AI can like boost revenue and EBITDA for existing businesses. And like a lot of what we've talked about is kind of circled around that kind of premise, right? That hypothesis, and you're kind of living breathing proof of this. Like your business is you're putting tradesmen and women in conjunction with the latest technology, and then but you're buying innovation as well. And so like how do you think what's your kind of closing thoughts on how companies can focus on like tangible AI applications to make their business better versus like, all right, you have to boil the ocean every time in order to get take advantage of these innovations that others are doing. Like how like what do you like just kind of some thoughts on the ecosystem there would be great.
I think in that same conversation, we talked about crypto, which I think is similar but different if I were to answer the same question. With AI, there's absolutely room to build AI companies, right? Perplexity is a really cool company. People building AI sales agents, those are cool companies to build. I think that AI is similar to the internet, similar to software. It's like the next evolution of software. And I heard a quote once that I loved, which is, "I don't care if you sell potato chips. If you're not a software company is going to buy you." right? And like headphones are a great example, right? Any headphone company that didn't develop a really good strategy got bought or is getting marginalized by big tech players, where headphones become a feature of software as opposed to the other way around. And I think AI is going to get interwoven and integrated into virtually every single business process that we have in life. And I think it's gonna be as dramatic as what the spreadsheet was to an accountant, right? If you there was probably a 5-year period where if you were an old enough accountant that you didn't wanna learn to use a spreadsheet, you weren't gonna be an accountant for very long. And I think that AI, although there are cool AI companies to build, AI is just gonna get woven into things um, everywhere in society, and it hasn't really barely started yet, right? It's like cool for writing and emails and this and that, but like when the agents start to come along next year, and we hit what the big companies are starting to call general AI, which is going to be still a little baby. It's gonna be powerful, and companies are going to need to adapt it and evolve, or they're going to get bought or put out of business by companies that do.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think what I've seen is this is true for both enterprise and for small companies as well, right? I think
Everyone.
yeah, I think sometimes small companies feel that they're too small or they don't need to worry about this, but I think I think it's going to impact all companies across the board. So um, I appreciate your sharing your stories, your reflection, the conversation. Unfortunately, we are at time, but Mark, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and thank you
Yeah.
everyone for listening. All right, guys, have a good day. Bye,
All right.
Mark.
Thanks, Debbie.